What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video with Taking the Pin, myself, Grimmy, and my beautiful co-host, Bragster, looking as charming and as slicked up as always with his fringe as he does on a lovely Tuesday afternoon. And with that being said, today we're going to be doing another one of our list videos or discussions, I guess. This time being centered around who we would like to see get a good hard push up the ladder in the year of 2025 in WWE. Now, we've both got a list of names. As usual, there will probably be some crossover, so don't be surprised if there is, because we haven't seen each other's lists. So we have 5 names each, and we're going to go through them. And as always, if you do enjoy the video, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to leave a comment telling us who you think deserves a push down below. So, with that being said, Bragster, get us started. Who is your first name on the list?
My first name on the list is someone we've had a couple of conversations about recently, even today, actually. Sami Zayn. I think this has to be the year. And the fact that they're teasing stuff with him, which they haven't ever done, even at the peak of the Bloodline story, Sami never truly felt like they were actually going to put the title on him. As much as that Elimination Chamber match was one of the best things I've seen, one of the best normal matches I've seen, and quite frankly, you could argue very easily it should have been the Mania match, but obviously, given the fact that it was in Canada, it made sense to obviously have it as Sami's Mania, really.
Yeah.
The exact same as how Sami and KO ended up having their match this year in Canada, and that's the whole reason for that, is because it's almost their Mania.
Yeah.
For me, with Sami Zayn, is it now feels like it is the time. There's something about this Sami Zayn that I think is the most complete. I think that, this babyface Sami, the crowd are behind more than ever. And that's possibly including the peak of the Bloodline story. We know he can do the main events. We know he can hang with the best. And he does it week in, week out. And he just has the crowd in his fingertips all of the time. Whatever journey he wants to take us on, he takes us on every single time. And I feel like if they don't do it now, if they don't do it in 2025 into the Mania season, per se, into where we're sitting here this time next year, if he doesn't win the world title in that time, I worry it may not ever happen. This is not like an LA Knight situation, where I feel where a couple of years ago or whatever, it was like now or never. I feel like this is now or never for Sami in terms of that world title push. And if he had ever won the title like KO had in the past, I wouldn't be sat here saying this, but there is no way in God's green earth Sami Zayn should finish his WWE career without a world heavyweight title or a WWE title around his waist at some point, because he'd instantly become the person everyone says of who is the best to never win it. He will be that man, and he should never be that man.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. In terms of getting someone that main event charge, I know he's obviously been in and around the Bloodline story, and he's had big main event matches with Roman and things like that. But in terms of actually getting that final end goal, I think Sami is a perfect guy to put on the list. Again, being a huge fan of his over the years, and he's had some up and down years, and particularly during the Vince era, there was a moment where I thought maybe he might not be long for the roster because of the way Vince treated him and with the way Vince booked him. But to his credit, Sami made the best out of everything he was given. Most infamously, I think that Jackass WrestleMania fight with Johnny Knoxville, I think that shows the type of guy that Sami is and what he can make out of any situation. So yeah, I definitely agree with that first one. So in terms of my first person to go on the list, it's an obvious one. I think it's the one that everyone's crying out for, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it any other way, but it's Karrion Kross. I think he is playing such a great game with the audience in terms of building his momentum without being on the show very much.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's obviously got his main event appearances and stuff like that, but no one really watches those anymore. Like, that's not exactly where you're going to gather momentum. Obviously, he gets big crowd reactions there anyway, but every time he comes on camera, there's a huge reaction. Everything he does seems to be turning to gold at the minute, whether it's the post-WrestleMania appearance on the Sam Roberts show, whether it's what he did with Ariel Helwani in the interview last week. I watched that back, and it was a great interview when came across like such a genuinely nice and humble guy that it's hard not to root for him, even after that. And, of course, he's the number one merch seller at the minute. So if anything's going to get you pushed, selling merch is a good way to do that. We've seen it with other guys before. We've seen it with New Day. When their stuff flew off the shelves, they became a prominent part of the show in of itself. But Kross is such a underused talent ever since he came out of NXT that it's mad to me that we've not seen more of him at this point. I think the tease that we got on Raw last night might be heading that way with Sammy. That might be the sort of the ball rolling there. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just think of what he's done, Karrion Kross, it just has so much potential to be a main event player in the future that really 2025 has to be at least the starting point of the push, if not just the rocket being strapped to him, and he goes from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know as well as I do that I love Karrion Kross. I think I said it in one of the first videos that we put out on this channel that I saw the Netflix debut and I was like, Karrion's got something. He's got his gimmick. Similar to Drew a couple of years ago, where Drew was doing fine, but he got his gimmick and then propelled him. I feel like Kross has got it. Kross has managed to finally piece it all together where he gets the crypticness, but with the badass that he is, and managed to mix it really well to the point where, you know, it's almost like he's inevitable now. Like, you know, he comes on your screen and you instantly go, yes, it's Karrion. And, you know, I was obviously at Raw and SmackDown when it came over to England, and he turned up and the crowd went wild. And that was, again, a main event taping. You know, I feel, and they gave him back his old entrance. That for me was a pivotal point of, okay, they know they've possibly got something here. They're gonna give him the flashy entrance again, because the flashy entrance is what everyone fell in love with in NXT. The infamous Adam Cole promo of, you know, you needed the flashy entrance and all they needed to do was ring the damn bell for me. You know, there's a reason that promo is so good, is because it was also partly true.
Yeah.
People loved his flashy entrance. That's what got crossover immediately. Now Kross has gotten over himself without the flashy entrance. Now with the flashy entrance, we can do some special things with him. And, you know, for me, a push, you know, unlike the Sami Zayn one, is probably not the world title. It's putting him in that, almost like the LA Knight push. The LA Knight push a few years ago where he got the US title, and it was like, that's it. That's the moment where the company has started to believe. I feel like we need to get to that point. And you can make the argument that he could be a very capable person of taking it off of Dominic Mysterio at some point down the line. And I think that would be a compelling story, actually. So I think there's some really interesting things that, as you said, to tell with Kross. I think, you know, with merch flying off the shelves, that's what got LA Knight going. That's what got Jey Uso going. That's what, you know, partly got Jacob Fatu going. So it's surely Kross it's his time.
Yeah, it's got to be coming sooner rather than later, and especially with Triple H bringing him back in as well, because he very much was Triple H's guy in NXT. It has to be coming sooner rather than later, doesn't it? Okay, so from the first couple of names, we shall move on. Bragster, who is your number 2 on the list?
My number 2 is a name I don't think people would expect on my list, and that's Alexa Bliss.
Okay.
Because And you could argue Alexa Bliss doesn't need it. She's got many world championships under her name. She's already been at the top of the card. But it's been a very long time. She spent a long time with The Fiend and with Bray, and, that was out of the title picture. I probably during that time she had more wrestling matches with men than she did world title matches.
Yeah.
And she's been out of that picture for so long that everyone's been scrambling for that back, and we're speaking a lot about crowd reactions. Alexa Bliss is getting stone cold level bombs for doing nothing but showing up at the moment, and that's incredible for the little amount she's been used this year after returning at the Rumble. It's incredible that she's getting the reactions that she is. That means people care. People have not forgotten how good Alexa Bliss is, and I feel like this next year, we've had a couple of years now of long title reigns, specifically Rhea Ripley, in the women's division. And I feel like there's something there about not hot potatoing, but sort of putting people in that picture for a bit and sort of going, okay, we're going to put this person in for that bit. They might win the title for a couple of months, and then we're going to put this person in. I feel like Alexa has to be one of those people. And especially with all these young guns coming through, like the Roxannes, like the Julias of the world, that Alexa's the perfect person to put in that position. Alexa's admitted it herself. She is somebody that shouldn't have been there, that bettered herself, made sure she was there, and made sure she was at the top, and she became one of the most valuable people in the company. I think she deserves to be in that spot again. And I don't want to see, if she does go back to the Wyatt Six, I don't want it to be, I'm back in the Wyatt Six and I've disappeared again from TV, or, I'm not in world title picture. Yeah. It should be, I'm the leader, I'm getting world title matches.
Yeah.
If she does go back to that. If she doesn't, and you've got what her gimmick is now, sort of a mix of the goddess and a little bit of the spooky side a little bit, you've got to position her in a way where it's, I'm going to win world titles again. We have not seen that world championship across her waist for so long, too long. To again, the point I was sort of making with Sammy, it's got sort of like, you got this concern that if you don't do it, that people's reactions are sort of going to dim a little bit, and that's just going to be it. That's kind of going to be the end of the main event version of Alexa Bliss, and Alexa's not ready to disappear from the main event. She is primed. She is ready. She's been ready for years. She needs to be back in that position.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like you say, I mean, everything you've articulated there was said pretty spot on, to be honest. Like, the reaction she gets just from showing up on a random show is at a huge level, which I think I don't think there's any female stars, maybe other than Rhea, that gets that sort of reaction at this point. So yeah, it would be great to see that sort of push again. And not that I would be against her being involved with the Wyatt Six again, but I don't want it to be at the detriment of her potentially getting the belt again, or having a good story or something like along those lines. Okay, so in terms of my second name, I've gone with another former NXT guy that hasn't really seen much nowadays. Now, he is on TV quite a bit, but he's not necessarily done that much. It's Carmelo Hayes. I think that he's probably on the start of something with this pairing up with Miz. I think there's obviously there's probably a goal of them two having a match at some point, or maybe him just developing a little bit under Miz's wing. Whichever it is, I think it's good for him. I was kind of left a little bit disappointed with where Carmelo went after he came to the main roster, and I felt like he was being a little bit underutilized. You got good matches out of him. Like, there was never any doubt about that, but he was getting losses left, right, and center. And I think Jimmy Uso's line in one of the backstage segments he had about him, when he says, with all those bricks, you could build a damn house. Because Melo allegedly doesn't miss, but he's been missing for quite a while. Yeah. And I think that with his character and with what he can do, both in the ring and on the mic, there is so much potential in that guy on a main roster feud, whether it's for a USA title or for an Intercontinental title at this early stage, or maybe in a few years when you've got the likes of Braun and people like that who are maybe in the main event picture that Carmelo can get to and sort of go back on history and use that as part of the storyline. And I just think that with the Miz stuff, I think that's maybe the start of it, and we've started to see a bit more go his way recently. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of with Aleister Black, because I know obviously that's going to kind of be the opening story for him and Black to deal with. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think there's a lot of potential in Carmelo that we haven't seen on the main roster that we've probably expected looking back on his NXT days.
Yeah. No, yeah. I feel like Carmelo was somebody that they drafted, obviously, in the first round. Everyone was like, oh, this is going to be the Finn Balor level of push. Like, virtually straight to the top. Or at least, what almost like Bron Breakker ended up coming and doing, and that was winning a title pretty darn quickly, holding it for a while, going on even further, and looking like an absolute beast.
Yeah.
You given the fact that, let's be honest, as impressive as Bron was on NXT, it was Carmelo and Trick that sort of stood out. They were the two that everyone was talking about week in, week out with NXT. They became the centerpieces of NXT. And that's why Bron was able just to sneak off a little bit onto the main roster. And then, so that's why when Carmelo came up, it was kind of like, right, they're going to hit the ground running with him. And then they just didn't. And I do think that was partly intentional. I do believe that. I think that maybe they realized that Carmelo's gimmick is a bit more difficult for people to get straight away. And that it does take time and realization of that. But also with the whole Melo can't miss, if he keeps missing, it kind of defeats the point. So I feel as though they're at this point, as you sort of said, like they've given him the Andre the Giant. They now need to do something more with him. And that cannot be a tag team title with The Miz. As much as I love The Miz and I massively respect him, Carmelo's push comes from a singles title, from showing he can do it as a singles guy. And that needs to come, as you said, sooner rather than later. Otherwise, the worry is that he kind of gets trapped in the mid card a little bit. And that where we know he can go, he won't go.
But I don't even think now he's in the mid card. Like maybe more so now he is. But I think what I was referring to, like earlier on this year in the back end of 2024, when he was having the matches with Jimmy and people like that, and sort of trying to be involved with what was going on, Damian Priest being his first opponent on SmackDown and things like that, it just kind of felt like he was kind of a throwaway opponent for people. And based on the build he had in NXT, that wasn't what I was expecting from him at all. Yes, he was going to lose matches. Everyone loses matches eventually. But I didn't expect him to be week in, week out, not really getting any progression. So I do think there is some, well, I say some, a lot of untapped potential there for Carmelo. So with that being said, who's the next name on your list?
The next name on my list, I'm gonna stick with the... No, I'm not gonna stick with the women. I'm gonna leave that one for a little bit longer. I'm gonna go back to the men for a bit and throw out a name that we have been calling to be pushed for a very, very long time. And their tag team to split up for a very, very long time. Step up Austin Theory. Right? And there's going to be a lot of people rolling their eyes because they're going to be like, Austin Theory. Do you not remember the NXT Austin Theory? Do you not remember the NXT Austin Theory? That was one of the best things to watch week in, week out, when he was in the way and paired with Johnny Gargano and was putting on match after match after match that was awesome. And even his US title reign, which, yes, I have to admit, the cash-in was stupid and all of that stuff, but his US title reign around that time was brilliant. It was actually filled with really good matches, not the Cena one, but it was filled with really good matches that was just, it was great to watch. It was, and he is great to watch when he's allowed to let loose.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's holding him back is he's a heel right now. and the crowd want to get behind him. There's an element, you can feel it in the crowd where the crowd see there's something there. And as we've seen in the past, Austin Theory can be a great babyface. As much as he's dislikable, he can be a great babyface. I've always thought the way that Austin Theory connects with the crowd is you make him an amazing babyface. People get sick to death of him, and he becomes an arrogant piece of work that no one wants to be anywhere near their screens, and that's how you turn him heel, right? It's similar, weird reference, but similar to how Jason Jordan nearly turned heel back in the day, where it was like, oh, we love Jason Jordan. Okay, you're becoming annoying now. That I feel like that I've always had that as the way that Theory becomes the heel. The fact that they went straight in with the heel, I just don't think they had anything to boo him over, other than the fact he was a bit arrogant. And like, there's just other people I feel like that are more comfortable with that just plain arrogant gimmick. I feel like Theory has always been deeper than that. He's always been deeper than that. And I feel like there's just something they can do with him. And, you know, and the push doesn't even necessarily have to mean title in this aspect. It's about making him feel relevant, because for a while he hasn't felt relevant. And again, that's partly because he was pushed to the moon under Vince. People got sick of it, and etc., etc. But I feel like now's the moment. Give him the story. Tell people who Austin Theory is. Let him do the flashy moves that we know he's really good at and can make us go, wow, every time he's in that ring. Put him in that mid card where he can have amazing matches with the likes of Bron Breakkers, Dominic Mysterio's, Jacob Fatu's, LA Knights of the world. Then the upper mid carders like Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest, who can all show off just how good Austin Theory is.
Yeah.
I feel like you do that, the crowd get invested. You've got a ready-made person in that upper mid card to main event scene, ready-made, ready to go at any moment you want to pull that trigger. At the moment, they've got a ready-made person that's sort of just tinkering away and not really able. You can't pull the trigger on him. You need him like a lit fuse, like Bron Breakker is, where at any moment you can trigger him and bang, to the top he goes.
Yeah.
They need to light this fuse underneath Theory. Like, otherwise, again, similar to a lot of people that we have on this list, you get that concern of it's going on too long, where it becomes a bit too late for them to achieve what we know they can achieve.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is one that's coming based on especially what happened last week with Theory getting a bit of comeuppance on Grayson Waller with the whole Sheamus fight, and then sort of Austin's reactions with the crowd and sort of what was going on after. And I think there was a couple of other things as well. Like, there was a video I remember of them at Mania, and there was a bunch of people like around the fence wanting autographs and stuff, and Waller was telling them where to go, and then Theory was just walking away, and then decided to run back and high five everybody and then go back in. Yeah. I think that's kind of, obviously it's pointing to that's what's coming, and I think it's been simmering for a while, so it'll be interesting to see if that's something that comes in for Money in the Bank. Obviously we're only a short while away from that now, but I think maybe SummerSlam, maybe that's where that pays off a little bit, and there's maybe a build to that feud from there. But again, like you say, going back to his NXT stuff, I think there is so much untapped potential in Theory that he could become a big babyface for them. I'm not saying he's going to be like a Cody Rhodes or, you know, a CM Punk or or a Roman or anything like that, but there is some potential there, and you never know what you get out of someone once you tap into that. Anything can happen from there. So yeah, Theory's definitely up there for me.
No, definitely. And you know, for me, my thinking is, I feel like a really good catalyst, if they manage to pull it off, will make Theory and Waller in some way, shape, or form. But I feel like Waller's, you know, he doesn't need the push, because I feel like he's just been gradually getting it over time. But with Theory, I feel like there's a moment they could do where they go to Australia and have Theory as the babyface. And if Theory gets cheered in Australia, where obviously Waller's from, I feel like that would be the catalyst for the casual viewers and stuff like that to be like, oh, wow. It's almost like how in AEW, over when they came over to Wembley, we were booing Mariah May and cheering Tony Storm, made Tony Storm feel a bigger deal because we're turning on our hometown person because we love the other one so much. If they manage to pull that off, if that's the plan, which I don't know if it is or not because we haven't got a clue, but if that is the plan and they pull that off, that is how you make him a star. And I really hope that that's part of their plans, because if they somehow manage to do it, wow.
Yeah, 100%. So from one tag team guy to another, I've got another one. I've got Montez Ford on my list.
The one for a few years.
The one that everyone's been kind of theorizing is going to happen at some point, but really hasn't for whatever reason. And especially when the Street Profits were kind of on the down low, not really being seen, not really doing anything. And I know there were injuries and things like that in between. But Montez is one of those great acts. Wherever he comes on the screen, there is so much character, charisma, personality in everything he does. I mean, he was using a guy's prosthetic leg the other week to help attack in a TLC match. I mean, that on its own is enough of a selling point for me. But since he came up to the main roster, I knew he was great in NXT, but seeing what he did on the main roster in a tag team situation, really not seeing anything like that in terms of a tag team, in terms of charisma and things like that, really since New Day came onto the scene, really, was such an eye-opener, really, because yes, the Street Profits as a team are great, and I wouldn't necessarily split them up. I'd maybe just make it they're backing each other up, or they go their separate ways in terms of, I'm going for this title, you're going for that title, you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever. Similar to what New Day Big E did in terms of, that sort of build. But I just think that with Montez, he has so much character in him. Never mind the wrestling. He can do everything in wrestling. But the character could be so good. Like, I'm thinking of, like, King Booker sort of crazy level of shenanigans, like that sort of thing. Not necessarily that he has to go have a King character, just that sort of wacky idea I think Montez can pull off. And so much more as well. And them coming back as a bit more of a serious duo wasn't something I really expected either, and they've been great in that. So whatever role they imagine up for him, I think he could do it all. I think he could be main event with a world championship. I think he could be intercontinental title. He could be somewhere in between. He could do it all. And I just think that we're getting to a point now where if he's not getting a push as a single guy, why is he not getting a single push? Because he's been there for 5-6 years now. Like, he's ready to do it. Much like Jay was. Much like Jimmy is. I think Jimmy's ready for one as well, personally. But Montez is definitely one of those guys that I think he's the complete package and really should be getting something in the near future.
I fully agree to an extent. I think he's next year. In my head. Like, if I was booking in my head, I would have him be almost like next year's project, like next year's like Jacob Fatu project or Jay project, because I feel like at the end of this year, you've got, likely it is Roman goes part-time, if you don't class him as part-time already. Cena will be gone. Randy's on his way out. Well, Randy will just do it until the day he dies, by the sounds of things. AJ is obviously on his way out. He said he won't wrestle in his 50s. He's like 47, 48 now. So, he's doing it. I feel like, Punk, we don't know how many years of Punk we've got left. So I feel like this year seems like a year almost of the veterans, a tiny bit. Whereas I think we've got next year, we're almost reaching a point where it's like, okay, we've got to push a couple of the mid-carders up, which then leaves space in the mid-card, and which could be a really exciting time. But I fully agree that, well, Montez especially, but also Angelo Dawkins both need this. I think that the amicable split is the best move. The Usos, well, I said the Usos type split, they did fight, but what the Usos are like now
Yeah.
is what it should be for the Street Profits from day dot. I think it should be a brand split type ordeal where someone drafts Montez, and that's the moment you go, right, now it begins. As you said, they can do the wacky stuff. He can do the serious stuff, as he's sort of proving now. And I almost feel like this might be a bit of a test in terms of the serious stuff. It's like, okay, well, then you do the wacky stuff, but to be a bigger guy, you need to be able to do the serious stuff. And again, Street Profits are proving they can do exactly that. I also think that, it's useful having a team to go to that haven't split, like almost like the Usos kind of are now, where, mystery partner, bang, in comes Jimmy or in comes Jay. There's really exciting duo, Kevin and Sammy sort of in, destined to always be together. I feel like, with Montez, I feel like that's Montez and Angela, that's where it should go. And as you said, Montez has always been someone I've gone, yeah, you're the man. There's just something, and I know I'm not the only one, and I know that's not a hot take or anything like that, but it's just that moment where you're just like, you've got something that I want to listen to every word you say. And that takes a lot to do. And I'm excited to see him as a single star, because if he can't do it, per se, then you can just stick them back as a tag team, which we know they're highly successful as.
Yeah.
It's one of those, and I was kind of thinking when you were mentioning the charisma, who sort of reminds me of a little bit Kurt Angle in my head of charisma-wise. If there's a bit wacky, but can do the serious side where when it needs to turn on, it turns on.
Yeah.
And I really like characters that can do that, because then that lends them to any type of story, whether they're facing, I don't know, YouTuber Logan Paul, where they can be a bit more on the wacky side of, I don't see what you can do in the ring with me. But then the serious side, when someone like Bron Breakker comes along, is about to destroy them. And I like that. I really like that a lot. And I feel like the matches, the way that modern day wrestling is going away from, big beefy boys, and instead being a bit more, mixed in the ring in terms of big people and flippy people. I think that he sort of suits that perfectly, of the look and everything like that. I think he can have almost like Swerve Strickland levels of reinventment after becoming a single star of, okay, like, this is an entire new look. This is me. I now look like a star where I can hold a world title.
Yeah.
I think Montez could quite easily go through the same process.
Yeah, 100%. And the sooner the better, in my opinion. Okay, so we've got the last couple of names to go now. So let's get into them. Bragster, yes. Who's next?
Next is a name I don't think people will expect on my list.
Okay.
Jordan Grace.
Oh, okay.
I think that Jordan Grace is possibly the person on this list that needs it the most. I worry that Jordan Grace could stagnate in NXT if she doesn't get the call up in the draft. I really want Jordan Grace to get the call up in the draft, give her one of the mid-card titles. This is what I mean by a push, is I feel like because of Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, and you've got Zarya and you've got Sol Ruka doing so many good stuff, and that's not including Kiana James as well, just to name a few off the top of my head, that are rising in NXT. When Jordan Grace was initially signed, we were like, this is the next hot thing, and then WWE signed about 5 more. And I felt bad for Jordan Grace at the time, because I felt like the rocket that was possibly going to be strapped to Jordan Grace's back ended up getting strapped to Stephanie Vaquer and Julia's back.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I'm not saying that was the wrong decision by WWE whatsoever. Yeah. But there are multiple times where you can see someone's trajectory going, and you just feel like now's the time to move on. There are some people that need to move on from NXT really quickly, and some, like Tony D'Angelo, stay there for ages, build a really good character, so when they come up, They're ready to go. Jordan Grace is ready-made.
Yeah.
We've seen that from the crowd reactions and stuff from both years she was in the Rumble. People love her. People are investing in her. She's got the look. She's got something unique about her. I've loved her from the TNA days. And I feel like you've got some ready-made stuff in there. You know, the stuff from the Rumble, and, you know, that, you know, you can have a little moment with Charlotte Flair and stuff going on. And, you know, you can have mini feuds almost similar to what you've done with Jade Cargill, do with Jordan Grace. I feel like if Jordan Grace stays in NXT, she'll stagnate, and you're not capitalizing on how much the crowd really like Jordan Grace. Everything's ready-made in Jordan Grace. The theme, the gimmick, the moves, the impressiveness in the ring, everything is already there to impress a casual audience and casual viewers. I think that, as I said, this is probably the one that I feel like needs it the most. This is one of the people that, once I got the name, I was like, this is the person that really needs a push. And I feel like that mid card is perfect. Have her hold the mid card title. Have her be the one that does what we expected Jade Cargill to do, and hold the mid card title for ages. Have Jordan Grace be that person to maybe make the United States Women's Championship feel something, because obviously the Intercontinental has a lot going on. You know, I would really like if Jordan Grace was to come up, you know, beat Zelina Vega after Zelina Vega has a couple more months as champion, beat Zelina Vega, and then becomes that SmackDown star. I just think it would suit her so well. And I feel like that there's a moment here where, you know, she's just lost at Battleground. You know, we're leading up to the draft. I feel like this is the perfect moment to move her on. I don't think she needs to stay in NXT at all. She's proven she can carry a division. Let her carry a division.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I made this call back when it got announced, when she was signed. Like, I felt she could have gone on to SmackDown and went straight after the US title and be the one to take it off Chelsea. Obviously, she's been in NXT for a little bit. I do think that loss against Stephanie is a point of the direction of she's probably going main roster. Unless there's a story to tell there that they're telling maybe with Jordan. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I 100% agree. I think she is going to be a mainstay in WWE for a long time to come. And I think the main roster should be in the near future for her. Speaking of the US title reign or belt or whatever you want to call it, that's my segue into the next person. We spoke about her many a time, and we're going to speak about her a lot more in the future, I feel. But it's Chelsea Green is next on my list. What else can I say about Chelsea Green that's not already been said by us and by a million other people? I think she's fantastic in the role that she does, whether she's on the show or not. Like Karrion Kross, she's someone that utilizes every single second she's on camera, or she's doing something off backstage. I mean, she got her nose broke on Saturday night's main event, and the tweet that she put out where she thought that the referee had told her she'd won, not that her nose was broke, was quite simply fantastic. And I think it's time for her to move on from the US belt, to be honest. I think it's time for her to be involved with something a little bit higher up the card, whether it's a feud that doesn't involve a belt and maybe involves one of the bigger players, or unfortunately it's not going to be Money in the Bank, it looks like, unless there's some shenanigans where maybe she gets another go at it, but I don't think she will. I was very surprised she didn't get in to that ladder match, because I thought she would have been great for it, in all honesty. But I do think that she is ready for something a little bit more meat on the bone to chew on, and maybe a bit of a longer feud. I do think she might get stuck in that US title picture, because I don't really feel like there's anybody that can take on Zelina at the minute, unless you bring up like that Jordan Grace we mentioned earlier, unless there's a bit of a shake-up in the draft as well. That might change things. But I do think there is something more out there for Chelsea, and I feel like she's more than earned it over the past however many months or years work that she's been doing. So yeah, I think it's time for Chelsea to get more of a push and to be utilised a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea Green is one of the most selfless wrestlers ever. Every single time she's asked to do something, she does it. You know, if you ask her to jump outside the ring, she asks how far. That's the type of person that Chelsea Green is. she is so talented, so good with any character given to her. Because let's be honest, being alongside the Secret Hervis shouldn't work. Not one part of it should work, yet I care. Why in the world do I care? Because it is a silly, silly pun that actually annoys me, and yet I love it. You know, her theme song literally says, "I'm a hot mess," over and over again, and yet we cheer and cheer. That is Chelsea Green. That's the Chelsea Green effect. That's what she does. And I feel like, in a way, I've made this comparison before. And again, I sort of thought that she would end up in Money in the Bank because I had this feeling that she could end up being the Carmella of, this year, where it's someone you don't really expect, but the moment they cash in and hold that title, you go, why haven't we done this before? I feel like Chelsea's that person. I feel like, unfortunately for Chelsea, it would take something like Money in the Bank. It will take something like that, I think, for storyline wise to get her there, because it makes sense to put her in the title picture. But I think storyline wise, to why the quick rise, I feel like it makes sense to, almost do a Jinder Mahal Battle Royal type ordeal where all of a sudden she wins and then she somehow sneaks a victory in the title match.
Yeah.
And I would really enjoy that. I'd really enjoy this sneaky Chelsea Green trying to find ways to win, almost like Eddie Guerrero-y sort of style of lie, cheating, and stealing, but somehow being cheered out the building every damn time.
Yeah.
I would love that. I would love that story. And I feel like Chelsea's someone that can run away with that. And again, as we've sort of mentioned with the women's titles, I feel like we're at a point now where we've had a couple of big long reigns. It could be fun to have a couple of shorter ones mixed in there, and Chelsea Green's a perfect transitional champion of some sort. And she's sort of person that, being a transitional champion for Chelsea Green, actually elevates her rather than is it being a disservice to her, because all of a sudden it makes people go, oh, actually, she should be in this title picture, and then that's what keeps her there. I would love to see it, really would.
100%, 100%. So then, we're down to the final two picks of wrestlers we would like to see get a push. Bragster, take it away with your final name on the list.
This is my sixth name because I thought of it while we were sat here.
Okay.
And because someone stole Karrion Kross off of me. I
was wondering, we've not had any crossover here.
Yeah. Hey, pun intended. Hey. But this is someone who a lot of people, again, might groan, but I think needs it.
Right.
Solo Sikoa.
Oh, okay.
If Solo Sikoa has another year of having a big boy as his sort of bodyguard, who then turns on him and ends up in the title picture and leaves Solo behind, I worry that fans will lose interest. Fans kind of lost a little bit when he was massively in the title picture during Cody's start of Cody's reign, after he defeated the Bloodline and then immediately is with the Bloodline again, which made zero sense in my head. I mean, it made sense to why, kind of, but I feel like he probably should have gone after the other title. It's complicated. But for me, I feel like what they need to do is keep JC Mateo as Solo Sikoa's bodyguard permanently. That's what they need to do. Do not have JC go away from him. Have them either become a tag team, maybe hold the tag titles for a little bit, but help Solo rise. Help Solo have this bit of personality. And I wouldn't even mind if they never tease the split, because everyone would be expecting it. But you have this undying loyalty, especially after Jacob Fatu's eventual turn. Having someone be undyingly loyal to Solo would be such an interesting way for his character, because then you could argue further down the line, after maybe a year or so of Jacob Fatu having turned on him, Solo could be like, you were the problem. And that then it adds layers to Solo. And right now, Solo is very face value. And and that is no like that is not an insult to Solo. That is just purely down to how booking has ended up working.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it just right now Solo is very blank, and I think a lot of people have lost that interest, but have forgotten that the Solo Sokoa that was in NXT, the Solo Sokoa the Bodyguard were great. Even Solo Sokoa, the semi tribal chief, was great. Like if you the character work is brilliant on Solo. People do not give Solo the credit for how good his character work is. He
Mm-hmm.
just needs something where rather than going up and then immediately back down, you go up slowly and it keeps going.
Yeah.
That's what Solo Sokoa needs. And I feel like my worry is with the pairing of JC that they might be telling the same story again. And in wrestling right now, fans are too clever. Fans see through that, and I really hope they're not doing it again, because I worry that then it just becomes a bit of a running joke. You then make Solo into a comedy character,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I'm probably losing a lot of people at this point, but like that's the train that happens in my head of how I would see things going. Is if he turned on again, people then laugh at Solo. Solo becomes a bit of a comedy guy because haha, he can't keep anyone. This, that, and the other. Then it goes down the line, and it's sort of the Solo Sokoa we know that could be the main eventer no longer exists, and you can't bring that aura back that Solo has. Solo has something about him, whether you like him or not. He has something about him, and I feel like we need to see something that isn't just him being turned on by Jacob Fatu, and that's it. And Jacob Fatu wins, and Solo kind of just left. And then JC turns on him, and then Solo's left again, and maybe without a match at Mania again. And I just can't have that happen. Not to a guy that we know could be so much more.
Yeah. I think that's the crucial component of whatever happens next with Solo is it's got to change him from being the guy that gets stepped up on and who is the step up for everybody and is part of their progression up the card to being someone who's going up the card himself. And I agree. I think having JC with him is a good start, but you've got to make sure if he ends up leaving him, it's not for a very, very, very long time. Because of course, whenever Tama Tonga comes back, there's obviously going to be something with him and Jacob. Him and Solo are probably going to have a feud of some kind. So yeah, I feel like everyone leaving Solo will become the end of many people's jokes about him, and you've got to make sure that whatever that push looks like, whether he wins Money in the Bank or if he wins the US title, that's a sustainable thing for him to get into and not become a throwaway thing for him to not win whatever comes next. So yeah, I think Solo's a great pick as well. Again, I've agreed with all your picks in some way, shape, or form, and Solo's another one that I think they can do a lot with. Now, in terms of my last pick, it's someone maybe a little bit left field that maybe people wouldn't necessarily expect coming out of me because I haven't really talked about him a lot when we've done these videos. But again, it's another tag team guy. I'm going with Johnny Gargano. So, I think one of the biggest missed opportunities we've had in terms of having a pure white meat babyface on the roster outside of Cody Rhodes since he's come up is Johnny Gargano. Now, there was always the big, will he ever leave NXT? Because him and Tommaso were always, we're NXT guys. We don't necessarily need to go up to the roster. We can stay here for the rest of our career and call it quits and be happy. And I think with what Johnny has over really anyone that's come up from NXT is a surefire way to get behind the fans. He's so easy to get behind. He's so likable. His matches are 10 out of 10s most of the time. When he's allowed to do what he can do, he is able to just go on a tear that very few people are able to do, I think, on the roster. And we've seen it in this tag team run recently with Tommaso and bringing back the DIY name. When they're allowed the time, and the spots and the minutes to have their matches the way they want to do them. They're able to set up matches in a really great way. And that TLC match that they've had, the freeway that they had, was brilliant. And again, they had all the components there to do it. They had the partners to do it with in DIY and Motor City. And I think that him having a solo run of some kind will work out. And I think that they just haven't given him the story to do it with. Now, whether that's a replay of DIY breaking up and Tommaso going full heel and him going babyface, or if it's something in between, or something totally left field that we don't see coming, I'm not entirely sure, because I don't know if them breaking up and becoming enemies would really work at this point when we've seen it already in NXT. We know that the matches would be great, but there needs to be some form of difference in that story, I think, in terms of storytelling or in terms of the reason why they would break up. Maybe it's Tommaso goes too far with something and Johnny's like, I'm not going down that road again. I'm not entirely sure what that is. But I just feel like there is a run in Gargano in a singles push that would be great. I need to see a way of us getting there. And yeah, it's the same with Montez. I think there's a babyface in Johnny that people will get behind. Whether it's a main event player, I don't know, but I just think there's a run in there with Johnny that we could get out of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a name I thought you'd pluck out, but glory days of NXT, man. Like they are two people who, as much as I love tag team wrestling, they're great. They don't belong to be permanently in tag team wrestling. You know, I feel like these two are two bona fide single stars that are great as a tag team, probably even better as individuals. And my God, just bring back Rebel Heart, man. Just bring it back. There was nothing wrong with Rebel Heart. Rebel Heart was like, it's easily Rebel Heart and Sammy's theme are the only two themes possibly in wrestling that whenever it sounds, you just immediately feel joy. Mm-hmm. You don't feel anything else but joy, because it's just like, oh, I'm in for a treat. Mm-hmm. And that's how Gargano makes you feel, and how we know he can make you feel. And again, I feel like you could do the amicable split again. You could do, and that would be really interesting, possibly more interesting than actually the Street Profits way of splitting, is you have the amicable split and that makes Ciampa lose it because he loses his partner. And if Johnny got drafted first, we know the list of things can tick Ciampa off. That's then how you have Ciampa lose his mind, because he then goes on a rampage on the other brand because he's like, you let them pick Johnny. Mm-hmm. And number one, you didn't pick us together earlier. And number two, you picked me really far down the line. What is going on? That I'm going to show you this, that, and the other. And poor Nick Aldis can probably get beaten up again.
Yeah.
And then you have, Johnny Gargano go on this big babyface run and, win the US title and the Intercontinental title. And as you said, and at that point, you've done enough to then gauge, how is it going to go? Does it go beyond this, or is this as far as it goes? Mm-hmm. But I feel like either way, again, if neither of those two win singles gold on the main roster, it feels a bit wasted. And with Johnny as well, there's very few people who, as they can get that organic baby face reaction so easily. Mm-hmm. Johnny Gargano is one of them. He is just gold every time. Not a name I thought you were going to pick, but a bloody brilliant one.
Yeah. I was just thinking of people who've been around for a while now deserve something. Doesn't necessarily have to be to the moon, but just have something to show for it. And I had Candice on the list as well, because I feel like but I also feel she's in sort of that awkward position, like we were saying about Solo, where you've just had Tiffy split up with Nia last year. You can't really have Candice break up with Nia too soon, and I don't feel like it's going to happen anytime soon.
They've sort of done it quite cleverly, where she's just aligned herself back with DIY, and they're not really addressing it.
Like it's not like a breakup. It's like she's just been moved over here.
Yeah,
but I think that I think it's going to be interesting what they do with Gargano, or if they do something with Gargano, I would be very interested and deeply invested in it because of how much I was a fan of him going back to the NXT days. I mean, those DIY and revival matches are so good. In terms of tag team, I don't think there's many that top that in terms of what I remember being a WWE fan. So, yeah, I just want to see Johnny and probably Tommaso you can probably lump in there for me as well. Maybe it's a sixth name on the list for me to get some sort of singles push. But, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So, with that being said, that is our 10 names on the list. We managed to come up with 10 names. There was a bit of crossover with Carrion over there. As always, folks, if you have enjoyed the video and you've enjoyed our opinions on who should get a push, let us know down in the comments who you want to see have a push. If you enjoyed the video as well, hit the like button. If you want to see more wrestling content, hit subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next one, folks. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.